Today's adventure takes us to Parque dos Ojos. 3 cenotes. The first one we head to will actually be Jaguar, and the last one, Dos Ojos. The first one includes swimming, jumping platform, and also zip lines. The next one, just a spectacular sight with all the vegetation, lily pads. And then the last one, Dos Ojos, the 2 eyes, is basically a closed cenote or semi-closed where you swim through spectacular areas. So we'll start with Cenote Jaguar. And do you see the spiny-tailed iguana at the top of the sign? We mentioned first thing to do is zip line. So I figured I'd do it before I get wet. Strap me in. I'm holding on to my 360 camera so I can get a video of the little trip. Oh boy.
There goes Jerry.
Okay. Manos acá, okay? Ready?
Adios,
Sit.
Henry Fifi.
Sit. Ready?
Yep.
It's a great view, and as I sail along the zip line, I turn backwards. Tough to hold the camera, hold the strap, but it's a lot of fun.
Gracias.
Now it's Kelly's turn. And what does Kelly do? Well, this is his second time down, so he thought he'd try something a little different.
It's a monkey.
Yep, that's him, upside down. Now I've got my 360 camera, and I put it in a water case, which messes up the picture a little bit. But I'm going to jump off and see what that looks like as I hit the water. I must be at the edge. 3, 2, 1. There you go, into the water. A little different view than normal. The shadow's on the water over at this side of the cenote, but let's see if I can see anything underwater. There were a couple little fish, and as you're underwater looking up, you see the trees above water and the few little fish. A little different perspective. And this is me just swimming along, snorkel gear. Of course, above me you see the sky. The crystal clear water. There are some fish, but not a lot else to see. But it's still interesting. We just bring our own snorkel gear, so you've got it, and you just never know what you might see. Cenotes are fresh water, so you could run into alligators, crocodiles, manatees, just about anything, I suppose. But chances of finding a shark are pretty slim since they require salt water. But just a beautiful sight. There were a couple other people here, but not many. So that feeling of seclusion as you look around the mangroves or the vegetation and rocks and swim through the channels, it just gives you a different feeling. Unlike when we were at Tortuga Cenote, where music was blasting and there were actually lots of people there. Okay, here's today's trivia question. How many cenotes are there in Mexico? Well, The answer is that there are more than 6,000 cenotes in Mexico, and most of these are in the Yucatan. So as you drive down the roads, everywhere you go, you'll see signs for cenotes. And they're all different, and they're all spectacular in their own way. There's even some you can find and just go swimming at on your own. But most of these we've gone to charge anywhere from about $4 to $50, depending how many cenotes and what other adventures you do. But we just thought that this first cenote out of this tour of 3 was spectacular. How could it get any better than this? Here, I decided to try to take a picture with my 360 camera, a water case of Kelly jumping in. First, he throws his life jacket away. And since I've got the water camera, I can capture him as he goes underwater. There he is, swimming with the fishes. A little different perspective. And here I explained to him how to work the underwater camera so that now he can take a similar picture of me jumping off the platform as I hit the water. And what do you know? He did an excellent job. I must be a good teacher. We had a great time here. Now it's on to our second cenote. And this one is different than any that we've been to. There were a couple other people there when we got there, but all the lily pads and vegetation made this unique, like swimming in the Garden of Eden. Just, the pictures don't even do it justice. Crystal clear water, fish, and vegetation. We threw on our snorkel gear, and I had my underwater camera, and I believe that's Kelly. Looks like he's found a rope that he can just kind of pull himself along, so it's easier than swimming, I suppose. But just a lush jungle, extremely beautiful. You can see some land above, and there's me. Some different channels you can kind of go down. But those lily pads at the top, just spectacular vegetation and greenery.
This is just spectacular.
We thought it would be difficult to beat Jaguar Cenote, the first of our 3 cenotes on this tour. But when we came here, it was just like nothing we'd seen before. And even though there were a couple other people swimming around, if we would have been patient, they were gone before too long. But it was just a thrill to see this. As soon as we walked up there, it's like, wow, this is spectacular. As you can see from the photos, it truly is. Whatever you think of as an Eden, I don't know, this kind of fit the description and bill for me. Just relaxing and just kind of like living in a fantasy. Just swam through. The vegetation, through the water, on the water. Cool to see. Saw a couple basilisk, some spiny-tailed iguanas. I can't tell who that is. Maybe that's the other couple people that were there. Ruining my picture, but it still kind of takes your breath away. All the ferns, palm trees, vegetation. That bald head, that's got to be Kelly. Some of the fish looking down. If you're wondering why I haven't shown a picture of Richard or Lark, they stayed back at the hotel on this day. Richard had a problem with his ear, so didn't want to get in the water. And we've done just about every ruin you could go to. And Kelly and I wanted to explore some cenotes that we hadn't been to before. And we decided to come here, and it was a great choice. We felt bad that Richard and Lark are missing out on this, but I guess they'll get to experience it through this video. And now they've got a reason to go back, as do Kelly and I. There's still, 6,000 more cenotes to explore. Don't think we'll ever see them all. But this was one I'm glad we didn't miss. Well, there was no zip line on this one. I think there might have been a platform you could actually jump in. And at the end of the cenote, there's actually a spot where the scuba divers go in and go through some tunnels. So if you're into that, you can do that here as well. As I mentioned, there were some iguanas.
Get him from the other side.
Didn't see any snakes, but always cool to see the spiny-tailed iguanas. But with that, we say goodbye to this cenote, to that iguana. We jump in our car after appreciating all the vegetation and head on. That's where the scuba divers go in. But we leave and head towards the next cenote, Dos Ojos. And this one was much more crowded, many more people, vendors, souvenirs, but they still had iguanas, so I still have to take some pictures of them.
Do your thing, iguana.
Come on, do something.
Move, you're on video.
They obviously don't take direction very well, because they pretty much just sat there. So I have to get closer and closer, get them to actually move a little bit. Cool to see, cool to watch. But now, it's back to the cenote. There's actually a couple different locations here.
Where are we at?
We're in Dos Ojos. We at the first Ojo.
The first eye.
The first eye. This is my new favorite, cenotes.
That's for scuba diving that way. And snorkeling that way.
We thought our first cenote was spectacular, where we zip-lined and jumped. And then the second one, spectacular, where you could swim through the vegetation. But as you heard Kelly say, he thinks this might be his new favorite. And you saw the scuba divers. There's a series of caves and tunnels that you can go through. And If we would have paid more, we could have rented flashlights and actually gone on a guided tour through these caverns, and you'll see some of the people on a tour with their flashlights. So next time Kelly says he'll bring his own underwater flashlights so he can do it on his own. So depending where you come in here, you may run into a few people. The main area here. There's me swimming around, taking some videos before I try any snorkeling. But it's just a beautiful area. The water, crystal blue. Even the people in the background there with their flashlights actually had something to it. Interesting to see. But then, big opening, providing some natural light. And it's kind of like an eye. There's a whole circle around that you can go through. But it's just easy to get lost in the beauty of the sight. Take tons of pictures. I love caves as it is, but underwater caverns with the crystal blue water and the stalactites just adds a whole new element and makes it even more spectacular. And when you can actually just swim through it on your own, that's even more amazing. The guided tours are always great, but there's something to be said for being on your own and being able to take your time and just sit back and look out and enjoy the view. Soak up the ambience. Who would have ever thought I could be in an underground cavern with stalactites and crystal clear water? Again, just seems kind of like a fantasy world. And if you noticed, when we came here, it said 3 cenotes, 600 pesos, or 36 US dollars. So the fact we exchanged pesos, basically 20 pesos per dollar, we paid $30 to go to these 3 cenotes, where if we would have paid in US dollars, we would have paid 36. So we did save $6 by using pesos instead of US dollars. But a lot of these locations, you can use a credit card, you can pay in US dollars, or you can pay in pesos. Some of the smaller areas, you pretty much have to pay in pesos. They may not take credit cards or US dollars. I mentioned that there are thousands of cenotes in the Yucatan in Mexico. Here's another trivia question. Are there any cenotes in Arizona? Think about that for a minute as you enjoy the beauty of this cenote. Had to get my head in there so you know I'm actually there. But just so amazing to swim through there. A couple different locations. I don't know when I've moved from one to the other from looking back at these pictures. But the answer to my question, is there a cenote in Arizona, is yes. And do you know where it is? If you guessed Montezuma's Well, you would be correct. It's the same geological limestone formation as these cenotes. But unlike these, even though it's a national monument, it's not a cenote that you can swim through or swim in. And it would be classified as an open cenote, more similar to one of the earlier cenotes I showed. There's some of the people snorkeling through. There's some lights that are probably from some scuba divers that were going through. But it was a spectacular day, and it was my birthday. But we saw these signs for these other cenotes that we still need to make it to. But I hope you enjoyed the video of these cenotes. Have a great day.